Despite the strategy's apparent simplicity, describing what it achieves in use requires around 7 minutes, covering a number of profound ideas in the meantime that have taken the entire history of mankind to explain. But perhaps above all, it is also worth remembering that much of what is described here happens without any need for discussion. In 30 seconds, the instructions have illustrated, that is, not mentioned any of them by name, the strategy's 3 central components: the prioritizing of referent power over coercive power, a certainty of apprehension that assures teachers that control is never lost, and students that such control is always administered fairly, and the use of graceful failure to allow behavioural expectations to be learned through mistakes. Behaviour can be learned in the same way academic learning takes place, by using those mistakes without resulting actions that punish them. In use, the format of the strategy as a challenge places referent power as the key influence between teacher and student, rather than relying on the much more commonly used, much less effective, and much more confrontational coercive power. Trust and respect are effectively replacing the use of fear in encouraging compliance, or, as in many strategies, simply hoping that the conditions are right for compliance. There are a number of reasons why students are interested in the challenge, though most just want to see if schools have actually changed at all. The unusual twist in the title of the challenge, which at first sounds heroic, then suddenly becomes something they don't want to be at all, is an indication that something has changed, and helps with engagement. But this is only the first unusual twist. The most difficult challenges to the rules can be seen through peer group challenges, through a kind of relay challenging of the rules, one student interrupting the lesson first, then a second student to relieve the pressure on the first student, and a third student, and so on, which may appear to undermine teaching and learning completely. This is deliberate. These challenges establish the certainty of apprehension, the fairness which strengthens the more challenges it receives. With no pressure on the teacher of having to issue or justify sanctions, and the rules of the challenge ensuring there are no mixed messages being sent that might provoke confrontation, challenges can be enacted quickly, enabling every event to be challenged, and resolved quickly, just a simple carrying out of the game rules, enabling the certainty of apprehension to grow quickly. The more times this is seen, the quicker the fairness and consistency of the system is embedded, and the real outcomes of the strategy can be seen. If the peer group relay challenges persist, a simple reminder to the most recent challenger who will at this stage be standing, that relying on others for support when a 1-hour detention is the reward for that support is a risky business. This alone is usually sufficient to break the grip of peer pressure in the others without anyone getting too upset. Even the student now standing can be released if there is still 5 minutes of the lesson left. Should it not break the grip, the student begins to exhibit medium or high-level disruption and can be managed by the appropriate system in their school. Even in this light, there are considerable advantages. More high-level disruption is being identified that would otherwise have remained hidden behind low-level disruption. Once identified, it has a greater chance of being reduced at first to mere low-level disruption and later to learning. As an aside, no use of medium or high-level sanctions were needed during testing. Yet an even more effective system for breaking the grip of peer pressure is already in place, and one that all students asked to stand will see as they stand. As has already been said, the certainty of apprehension delivers fairness, which comprises full behavioural expectations being delivered every time they're needed through demonstration. But when they see the teacher actually delivering that fairness, and that through that fairness, low-level disruption is being stopped and the teaching and learning environment is being optimised, they see something that they value greatly. No children enjoy pupil-teacher confrontation. There is always an element of loss on both sides within that process. When confrontation stops, rewards in the form of well-being through reductions in anxiety flood the room, and equally importantly, without any need to stop the lesson to acknowledge it, which would negatively influence the natural balance otherwise being achieved. Students feel safe, as well as teachers for that matter. This is a deeply personal experience and must not be interrupted. Box ticking or attempts at self-congratulation disrupt referent power, which is increasing rapidly at this stage, enabling all other powers to grow in the background. However, this feeling of safety from external sources is nothing compared to the relief received from internal sources, between the competitive conscious mind and the cooperative instinct. Students' competitive minds can now push boundaries and can now see the boundaries pushed back in a manner that is reasonable and acceptable through the certainty of apprehension. And with graceful failure, a simple return to learning rather than a protracted discussion or argument causes negligible disruption to the caring cooperative instinct. Although students will not understand this until they learn about it in Part 2, they will recognize that something very positive is happening. Their ability to concentrate is increasing. Not only this, their teacher has almost 4 times more availability to support students directly because of their higher levels of concentration. Teaching and learning is showing signs of maturity. Soon, work will be finished more quickly and to a higher standard. Eventually, students don't even notice the challenge going on around them, as their ability to concentrate, driven by reductions in anxiety, takes over. There will soon be no need for the challenge at all. With all of this having happened through the use of one word, backed up by the consistent non-verbal demonstrations of a simple set of rules, time wasted is at a minimum. 12 challenges can be made before 1 minute has been used. In the time saved, advanced study of the challenge, as a way of spreading its positive outcomes into more areas of a student's life, can now be studied through Part 2 of the Return to Learning strategy, without taking any time away from existing examination commitments. Indeed, with increased time and greatly increased concentration, it is difficult to see how the performance of these existing examination commitments would not also increase significantly. Save for this. Students will realize the existing curriculum and the way it views the world is not only inadequate, but fundamentally flawed. If Part 3 is not planned by the time this realization occurs, low-level disruption will return. As students will see it, schools will not have changed after all.